How did you know you were burnt out? What was that feeling? How did you recognize it? Because I think there's some people that don't even know they're burnt out. So how did you recognize that in yourself?
I think there are a lot of people that don't know they're burned out. And the reason is because we're going through something and living in a way that is not healthy or normal for such a long time that it becomes our normal. And so we can't really, we don't have that awareness that something should shift.
Hello, you beautiful people. Welcome to Tampa Bay Unlocked, the podcast where we dive into the dynamic world of real estate and business in the vibrant Tampa Bay area. Join us as we sit down with top agents and industry leaders who share their insights, strategies, and stories of success. Whether you're a seasoned professional or just starting out, our interviews will unlock the secrets to thriving in one of Florida's hottest markets. Get ready to be inspired, informed, and motivated by the experts shaping the future of Tampa Bay. Tune in and let's unlock the wisdom from our next guest, an incredible professional who holds herself and her team to high standards and professionalism and is the president of Keller Williams St. Pete Luxury Committee and has already achieved $12 million in production, and we're only 6 months into the year. I'd like to introduce Monica Crawford.
Thank you. What an intro.
What an intro. Yeah. What an intro. And I got to do it twice because I'm raw people. We had to do it again.
That's okay. We're better the second time.
We are way better. Like you said, comedy shows are always better the second night.
That's right.
So, Monica, let's recap on our amazing conversation that we were having before for everyone. It's so important for people to understand the background with people who are achieving success as to where they started because they think that you just popped out of the womb that way.
Right. Selling houses.
But you did not. So tell us, how did you get into real estate?
I got into real estate because it was my husband's idea. So depending on the day, he either gets credit or blame for this whole thing. Absolutely. But we're 10 years in, and we're happy to be here.
You're thriving. You're doing all the things. Yeah. So I'll bring us back a little bit. So you came here from Kentucky,
right? Yeah.
Off a whim.
Yeah. Well, yeah, kind of. Like 2012, moved here in the fall on election day, actually in 2012, but had spent about a year researching the area. Like so many of our clients, I came down here on vacation. I fell in love with the area, and I said to Adam, we're going to call this home. I went back after vacation, got a job opportunity, had to stay in Kentucky for a year, and have a great job opportunity. But I truly spent that whole year researching Pinellas County. I kept going back to Gulfport, and I just said, this is where I've got to be. And so we moved here in November 2012. And the reason we were leaving Kentucky was really to seek better job opportunities, better earning opportunities for me, particularly. And I didn't really know what that was going to look like. I did a lot of work in nonprofits. I have a degree in communication. A lot of my career before we got here was in the nonprofit world. And so when I came here, that was what I knew. And I started working for Mothers Against Drunk Driving. And I did that for almost a year. But at one point, I came home from work and Adam was like, what are we doing? You know, we came here for a new career for you. And if you were going to stay in nonprofit, we could have stayed in Kentucky. And so I said, I just don't know what to do. And he had seen that Keller Williams was having a career night where, we get to just educate people on what a career in real estate looks like. So I went, I listened to what they had to say. I felt like I had a skill set that would translate. And so I said, well, let's give it a try.
Love that. And thank you for sharing again. And you mentioned before that there was somebody, as you were going through the Ignite New Agent Training Program, that had an influence in you. And so could you share that again of who that was and the two things that you took away?
Yeah, because we were talking about just how important it is that you have a support system. I think in all things, but definitely in real estate because it's tough. It's a tough industry and it's definitely tough to get started. So my very first coach when I came to Keller Williams was Dana Bickford. And there were two things that Dana taught me that I will always keep with me. And the first one is do it afraid. Stop letting fear hold us back. And I tell my kids that. And the second thing she said to me is, Monica, you are a mega agent. The numbers just haven't caught up to you yet. And I believed her. I chose to believe her. And so I just really kind of surrendered to the Keller Williams process. I said, I've never owned a home. I've never sold a home. So I don't know what I don't know. I'm just going to surrender to this process and go from there. And that's what I did.
Yeah, and we were talking about, you used the great analogy about launching a rocket ship.
Yeah.
And how those first 18 months, it was a grind. It was tough.
Yeah.
You said you burnt out. You weren't, there was a story you shared I think it's really important for those listening. Could you share your door knocking story?
Yeah. And that's an important story for me, too, to reflect on, So I had decided that my laser focus getting started in real estate was going to be working buyers and meeting them open houses. And so a big part of open housing is door knocking. And I was out again. I think I had shared before that really like for the first year and a half of my career, I was doing 2 open houses every weekend and just grinding it out, right? And I was door knocking for an open house one day. My mom called me while I was door knocking. And she said, I know you're putting a lot of effort into this and it takes a while to get it going. And I just feel like you needed some help. And so I wanted you to know that your dad and I sent you some money. And I come from Kentucky, from the most supportive family, hardworking, blue collar family. And and I needed money and I didn't ask her for it, but when she called me, it really meant so much to me. I stopped door knocking for a minute. I went and sat under a tree and cried, because it just was a moment for me that was like, I know how hard my family works for their income. And if they believe in me enough to just send some to me, I'm going to make sure that they know I'm doing everything I can to make this work and to be successful.
Extremely powerful. Extremely powerful. And for those listening, if you're not in the business, we talked about like a support system and how important that is, no matter what that looks like,
right?
Financially or emotionally. And sometimes
and a
both.
Little bit of both.
Sometimes both, right?
Yeah.
Because it is tough. However, what you said about 2 to 3 years, 2.5 years of when you felt like you finally had things moving.
Yeah, that's when I felt like really stable, I think. Like I had enough transactions under my belt. I dealt with enough things that I didn't feel new anymore. And, had overcome some challenges. And so that was about the time that I was like, okay, like I know what I know, and I think I'm pretty good at this.
Yes. One thing that I love about you, and I mentioned in your introduction, is your high standards that have for yourself and your clients. So could you share a little bit about how that came to be for you? And I just want to point out, because I didn't the first time, that I think it's incredible. I can always make connections to people's past. And you working in a nonprofit world and being structured as you were, I think that's why your business looks the way that it does now in terms of referrals, right? Because you come from a place of wanting to give back even when there was no money to be made.
Right. And I appreciate that, because I kind of had to find my place in real estate coming from the nonprofit world, especially where you have, a very clear purpose and passion of your organization. So when I worked in nonprofit, every morning that I woke up, I knew what I was working for. And when I first got involved in real estate, it's such a numbers-oriented industry that it felt really hard for me to connect with like the purpose and the why beyond money, And I was in a conference once, and somebody stood up and shared like the same pain point. They were like, it's been really hard for me. And one of the things that I did, this guy was saying, is I started setting my goals instead of like units that I wanted to sell or volume. I set it on how many families I wanted to help this year. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's it, right? And so that was kind of how I like shifted and found a meaningful purpose outside of just a sale.
Isn't it so interesting how that it's such a minor shift? Right? Like when you think about that sentence right there, when you're like, okay, it's not about units or volume, but just rewording it as the families that are being helped. And that's what helped you make a connection.
Yeah. And, back to a rocket analogy, when a rocket is like launching and it has its end destination, it makes like a million minor tweaks along the way. Nothing major, but if it didn't make those minor tweaks, it would end up on the other side of the universe than where it intends to go. And so those little minor changes that we can make, or even the small little steps of growth that we experience, are so important. And I think it's easy to kind of, not feel like you're making progress if it isn't some grand gesture.
Yes, I love that, because it is probably the minor things. Well, we know 80-20 principle, right?
Right. 20%
of what we do gets to 80% of the results. So that 20% can feel micro, but gives you an 80% efficiency.
Right.
So I love that connection. I love your universe analogies, because I live in that world.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about, well, one, I would definitely want to touch on your standards and processes with yourself and your team and the customers that you work with. But before that, because I think in the early days, there's 18 months, you mentioned burnout. And this is a conversation that you and I have had before. Walk me through that. Like, how did you know you were burnt out? What was that feeling? How did you recognize it? Because I think there's some people that don't even know they're burnt out. So how did you recognize that in yourself?
I think there are a lot of people that don't know they're burned out. And the reason is because we're going through something and living in a way that is not healthy or normal for such a long time that it becomes our normal. And so we can't really, we don't have that awareness that something should shift. And I'll also say what I've learned definitely through real estate and in other aspects of life is that we oftentimes have to learn the same lesson over and over in different areas of our life. And we feel like, okay, learned it here, don't need to learn it again. And then it shows up somewhere else. And we're like, dang, same thing, right? I have to apply that over here. And so I say that because it's so important to me to always be transparent when talking with other realtors, especially about what this experience has been for me. And it's different for everyone. But people see, it's kind of like a flipped home, like we see all the bedazzle and we don't think about the details. And so I have faced burnout multiple stages in my career. And every time I think I'm getting better at identifying it more quickly. And I know more about how to get back into a balanced place. But the sign, so I did this practice that's like indicators of balance and imbalance that my coach had me do. She actually was like, I want you to write down indications of when you're in balance. That was her task for me. And I did that. But being who I am, I'm like, well, I want to know what the indicators of imbalance are because those are the things I actually want to identify. And so I started making a list of what are those things. And they're very unique to every person, but it's minor things. It's like for me, if I can tell that I'm eating while driving or standing more than sitting, this is a sign that I'm not balancing my time correctly. My car will be a disaster. I might have a breakout. I'm not getting eyeball to eyeball time with my kids. I'm not present in the moment. And so, and a million other things, but these are things that I've learned to really start looking for. And when I start to see some of these things showing up, my third column that I did on the worksheet was ways that I get back to a balanced place. And I think sometimes when we think about that, when we're like, oh, we've crushed it for like 2 weeks and we need some self-care, we're like, all right, I'm going to go get a manicure. And that's great. And that might feel good, but that isn't actually like replenishing our soul. It feels good. Sitting on a couch and Netflixing for 2 hours feels good. And we have to do those things sometimes. But it's like, what are the things that actually fill my cup back up? For me, it's being close to the water, spending time in nature, spending time with my family, and other things. But having that like blueprint in front of me, and I literally have it hanging like in multiple places in my life, just these 3 columns of information, it helps me stay more present and catch things before I get too far off of balance. So that's something that you developed while you were in real estate? Did you experience burnout before or no? I doubt it. I mean, I like to say I worked for a Marine, and this is the hardest job I've ever had.
Got it.
No, I think that this career I've had to learn a lot about balance. And, we've talked before, too. I say that we are the experts. We are the professionals. And so it's up to us to educate and also to set expectations for consumers. And there are a lot of folks in the industry and in other industries anymore, really in our like hustle society, that don't have any boundaries, that work is their whole identification. And I became that. And I realized I was really boring because all I cared about really was real estate. And people love to talk about real estate, but not all the time.
Right.
And I didn't like the version of me that I had become, And so, I had to learn to set boundaries and to take time off and to learn to say no, and to also learn that like every yes has a corresponding no. And so to think through all the yeses that I was giving and to be able to say, okay, who does the no go to and who's going to be most disappointed? And I get to choose who I'm okay with disappointing the most.
So many powerful lessons in there. And it's amazing to watch you discover that and learn that and implement it. And you do at a high level. And I will say, and people are afraid to say no because I think it's going to affect their business. But I think it's safe to say now, your business as of today, you're on track to double what you did last year. Is that fair?
Yeah. And I'm not aware of any business I've lost by having a boundary. I might have lost some, but I didn't know.
I would say you've gained business. Because, and this will roll us perfectly into standards and expectations. you set them so clearly. And it's obvious because of the classes that you teach here and the checklists that you have. It's like we are launching an airplane or a rocket, right? Like they have a checklist to check every little thing and every little switch, and you run your business that way.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, how long did it take you to develop that? And was that intentional from the beginning? Or was it learned through coaching? Like just, I mean, because not everyone operates that way.
Right. I'll say that I started developing it early on. It's just part of kind of who I am, because I am someone who really likes stability and structure and processes. That's just part of my behavioral style. So I lent myself to that, right? But also I'll say kind of what I realized in this job is the people are the best part of this job for me. I am not passionate about houses or real estate, but I am passionate about relationships. And I'm good at relationships. Relator is actually my number one strength on the Clifton Strength Finders. So it's there, right? And so I think that, you know, creating a way that I could show up as the best prepared version of myself for my clients was part of the thinking behind that. There's a lot of thinking that we do in this job. There's like tactical thinking, there's strategic thinking, there's emotional intelligence thinking. And I wanted to be able to take out as much of the low-level thinking that I could so that I had more bandwidth for the high-level thinking that I needed to be able to do. And so creating checklists and things like that really gave me time and energy back into my life and my business, because I wasn't wasting it sitting down saying, oh, what day are we in the contract? What's up? Every day I have my checklist. I look, I know exactly where it is. And it's given me back time and energy.
I think it's so powerful what you just said, and your ability to be conscious of it, of even those micro thoughts or thinking. There's only so much thinking time in a day, and having to think about even in the smallest of things can back up the bigger thought process. And be like a clogged pipe, you know? And so I love that you removed that low-hanging fruit for yourself. And to the point of what I made earlier of, it's created this, what you referred to earlier as a very referable experience because it's repetitive.
That's it. And so that's also part of it, right? So the systems are in part for my own health and sanity and balance, but also when I have a system and I use the system every time, I'm able to give a consistent experience to my clients time and time again when they come and work with me, and for every other client that I work with. And so if, you know, Scott and Shanna are like, oh my God, she was fantastic, you've got to use her, I want to make sure that I'm delivering the same type of service to the next client. And then as I grew my business and my team, that became even more important, because part of having a team is having support so that you can take time off, or if you're sick, you can stay home. And I know that because each of us are following the same process, any one of my teammates can step in for me or me them, and the client will not experience any disruption. And that's crucial for having a referable business.
What would you say to, let's talk to the other mega agents out there right now that are probably on the face of burnout and they're hard to say no. Like how was that a hard limiting belief for you to overcome? Like in this time where you're in this period of your life where your world was real estate, only thing you could talk about, and you weren't recognizing it at the time. If someone came to you and said you need to set expectations to when you're available and say no to people, how would you have responded then?
Well, I probably would have been resistant, as many of us are, because we come from a scarcity mindset, right? And I mean, so I think so much about success in life is about your mindset. And so whether you're a realtor or a mom or an athlete, whatever it is, your mindset is the most important thing to work on and protect and build every day. And Keller Williams proved that with our 6 personal perspectives. I mean, that was the takeaway.
Teaching that on tomorrow.
Oh, yes.
During
I
sales
love that
meeting.
class.
Yes. Well, in the sales meeting. So bring your team.
Yes, I will. Absolutely. And so I think that first off, being able to learn how to lean more into an abundance mindset versus a scarcity mindset is important. And for me...
Did you always... Is that something you learned in this ecosystem?
I think I've like really always been like a pretty positive, you know, a grateful person. I like to have an attitude of gratitude. You know, it's like my favorite hashtag. Attitude of gratitude. But yeah, I mean, I think that's always been who I was. But I lost who I was really in starting this business, you know, because It's just what it took at that time for me. And I'm not saying it's the way for everyone to experience real estate, but it was mine. And so learning to get back to like the things that gave me joy and the version of the person that I wanted to be was what was important enough for me to change my behavior. And ultimately, what I would challenge people, the question I like to ask people really is like, what is more important to you? How your life looks or how it feels? Because that was the ultimate question I asked myself, to say, my life looks really great and I've made more money than I ever thought I would make. And I have a beautiful family that I'm never present for. And I hate the way I feel. And that was a wake-up call for me. And so I had to be uncomfortable in that growth, right? Because kind of prioritizing how I feel over how it looks means that maybe I'm not following, the trends or driving things that people think I should drive or whatever it is. But I'm so far down that path now that it is all about how I feel.
There's so many, it's amazing listening to you speak and follow your mind on this, because your intuition and awareness and presence with yourself, and I can hear how that's developed over the years, is remarkable. And I think I wish more agents were as present as you are with that awareness, because I witness you run a team and a high-level successful business and come in with such a balanced, well-grounded attitude.
Yeah.
So it's fun.
It feels good. It finally feels good.
Good,
I actually said last year was my highest year in production ever, and it was my healthiest and happiest year. And that the healthy and happy was like a greater accomplishment for me than even the volume closed,
Yeah.
To find a way to have both.
Yeah. And I think in the early years, it's like you're just like starving artist mentality. We'll do anything and just, you got to do it to get it off the ground. And then you can finally get to orbit. Now you're just dodging other space junk, right?
That's right. Yeah. But I'll also say, if I can just for a second, it was like, at one point, so I kind of had this realization when my son was about a year and a half, that my life looked great, but I hated how it felt. I wasn't present. My husband was like, even when you're home, you're not really here. You're on your phone. And that's messed up. That isn't who I want to be. And so I decided to go back out on my own. I was on another team. That was a fantastic team, but I was just ready to go out on my own. And I was really looking for a mentor, another working mom agent who had the same priorities that I had that I could emulate. And I could not find her anywhere. And so I just decided I had to become her. Truly. And I was like, then I'm just going to be it, And part of my challenge at that time was really feeling torn between, I have to choose if I want to be a mega agent or a mega mom. And I don't think I should have to choose. I think I should get to be both. So how do I do that? And creating an even bigger support system for me was how I did that. And so that was really when I decided to launch the team, was to create, leverage for me so that I could take time off. And then it was like, oh, I want other women to I want to mentor them, And so I have an all-female team, and we love our guys too, but our team is an all-female team. And part coming from the nonprofit world that I do, part of my passion with my team outside of the business side of it is the female empowerment side. I love being able to be an example of how you can have the life that you want, whatever that looks like, and living a life with such intention and design instead of by default.
And have it feel good.
Yeah.
And have it feel good.
Yeah, have it feel good.
I lost my train of thought for a second, but I'm back. Because I'm just enthralled. It's just awesome. So the team, was that something when you started that you thought would be something you would have? You kind of mentioned this already, it almost came out of necessity to buy time back. But when did you start to have those thoughts? Because I have a lot of conversations with agents every day, and some are so held back by the thought of starting a team.
Scary.
Yeah. So what?
Yeah.
Okay, back to your theme of doing it with fear. But what about it for you was scary, and how did you overcome that?
You know what? I had the perfect first teammate. I was 80% ready. I was already kind of putting some things into play, but I was scared. And there was an agent who sat right outside of my office. Her name is Annie Kushner. And we could hear each other. because we were so close. And she had her first closing at KW. And so I was like, girlfriend, like, we got to celebrate, right? So this was our old office. We went down to Bella Brava to celebrate. And as we're talking, she's like, why don't you have a team? And I was like, I'm really close. But I said to her, I'm like 80% ready. I'm just not there. And she goes, well, what if you found the right person to close the 20%? And I said, are you offering? And she said, I want to be on your team. And I said, I will launch the team. And
Powerful question.
Totally, right?
Yeah.
Because then we have to, like, that's like when the seller's like, yeah, I'll schedule an appointment. We're like, oh, now I have to perform.
Yeah, now I gotta do
it's like
something.
we want to hear no more, really, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, yeah, that was a big part of it, was like, you know, feeling encouraged by somebody who saw value that I could offer and wanted it and wanted to help me launch it. And I am always and will always be so grateful for Annie, because she pushed me over the edge.
Sometimes you just need that little nudge.
Totally.
Right?
Yeah.
Like you're right there, you're like, oh, I had this 20, and time, you're like, oh, it might take another 6 months.
Yeah.
But no, it can happen a lot
we were
faster.
ready. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think that's life, though. It's like that gradually then suddenly effect. It feels like things happen really fast, and sometimes they do. But for the most part, it's like it's been burning. And then you reach that tipping point, and there you go. And that was it.
Yeah. What do you attribute to your growth this year?
My volume growth or my growth as a human?
Both.
Okay. Well, I'm 10 years into my business, 5 years into having a team. And I think the growth in my business, because it's not the market, right? I mean, we're not in a thriving market. But I think that I have reached like a new level. Like I've broken through to a new level with my business. And everything my business does is focused around the client's experience, from what we do in the initial sit down on a consultation, the swag bag that we give them, you know, the buyer's book that we give them. We're all about educating and empowering our clients. And I also set the expectation the first time I meet with a buyer and seller, within the first 3 minutes of our consultation, I have said I have a referral-based business, because most likely they came to me from a referral. But I say I have a referral-based business, and I'm telling you this because I want you to know that I'm going to expect referrals from you.
Expect.
And that's ballsy, right? To say that. And so I follow it up and say, and the only way that I'm going to earn referrals from you is if I give you a referable experience. So me sharing this with you is setting an expectation that I'm going to work really hard for you, and you're going to want to tell all of your friends and family to work with me.
Boom.
Right.
Well, you did so much there. I think there's so much, like, people, you should rewind this and listen to that again. I'm so serious, because you are training them on how to, one, work with you and give you referrals, right? You're planting those seeds, and people say, oh, well, I don't want to ask for referrals. You have to. Also,
why wouldn't you? I mean,
well, people think that, well, if I do such a good job, they're going to know, right? There's this assumption that, well, they know.
Yeah.
They don't.
No, I always say it is not their job to remember. It is our job to make sure they don't forget.
Yes.
And so, yeah.
And I'm a little bit of a science nerd, and I like that by saying that, you're putting it in their reticular activating system, which now brings it to really the back of their mind, but the forefront of their mind. So that way, when they hear or see someone who they could refer them to, they remember that conversation.
Right. And everything. I mean, that's how we start the relationship. You know, my lead generation is around my sphere. We have an annual projects calendar that every month we're doing things to bring value and bring fun to our clients. And I think just a decade of building those relationships has been the biggest part of me just kind of shifting to the next level in the business. And I will say at the beginning of the year, I was like, where's all this coming from? It's a fluke, right? And I still had some of that scarcity, like the other shoe's going to fall. It's going to be like, I'll have a month that I don't close anything. And several weeks in, I was just like, you know what? No, like I've built this. This is why I do what I do. So let's like appreciate and acknowledge that we've gotten to this level.
Yes.
Yeah. And keep doing the things that got us here.
Right. Yeah. You cannot stop. Stop. I had another good question off of that, but I forgot. But I want to acknowledge you stepping up as leadership for our community and stepping into the president role of luxury committee. Did you ever think when you started and you were crying underneath a tree that you would be president of a luxury committee?
You know what? If you asked me last October if I thought I'd be president of luxury, I'd say no. And so I'll answer that while also answering your other question about my growth as a person this year.
Yes, love that. Perfect.
Yeah, because it really ties in.
It
yeah,
does.
and I think that the universe, gives us these blinking lights, and it's up to us to see them and choose to follow them. I had decided this year that I really wanted to work on my luxury mindset and what luxury means to me, because I don't attach to material things, really. Those aren't just things that make my heart happy. Mm-hmm. And that's the easiest way, I think, to understand or define luxury is by brand names, essentially, mm-hmm. whatever it is you're mm-hmm. looking at.
But it's the way those brands make you feel.
Right. That's absolutely it, right? And so I had a block in my growth because I didn't know how else to define, and I wasn't looking that deeply, mm-hmm. into things. And so I was like out on the paddleboard one morning with my kids, and I was just like, this is luxury for me, right? It's how I feel. It's having the freedom on a Monday morning to be paddleboarding with my kids. And so just that shift, again, like a minor shift, right? But it was that minor shift that caused me to start like seeing things differently and then not feel like an outsider to the luxury world. And I've already, before this year, I'd sold a lot of luxury properties. So it wasn't that I hadn't been in that market before. Mm-hmm. I just didn't really feel like I belonged. Mm. And so I started kind of shifting my mindset around what luxury meant to me and understanding it, we each get to define that for ourselves. And then I was like, all right, I'm going to join the luxury committee. And I was so nervous, like even the first meeting, I'm like, do I deserve to be here? And then when the opportunity came and you met with me about becoming the chair, I immediately was like, this feels so uncomfortable. And I know it is a blinking light from the universe. So I have to say yes to this. Yeah.
I love that. I love that. I love that conversation that we had. And mm-hmm. I love like now even hearing your back thoughts mm-hmm. behind it in that. And, sidebar, have you ever read Matthew McConaughey's Green Lights?
No.
Oh, you would like it.
Okay.
You would really like it.
I just ordered your other book, so I'll add it to the queue.
And this is a little more like, that book I refer to is exactly what to say. Phil mm-hmm. Jones is like I don't mean to be, but I think it's funny. Like that's a good like toilet read.
Right.
You know, because you could just like flick it open. It's real quick by the time like you're moving on, right? But McConaughey's book would be a good like beach read or like that Monday that you have off to where you could get into like mm-hmm. a story and you don't feel like it's like, oh, I'm learning lessons through a beautiful story.
You know what? I think I heard him interview with Ed Milet on his podcast about it. Yes.
It's so good. Mm-hmm. It's so good. So
I'll have to check it out.
Anyone listening, please go check it out.
Green light.
Green lights.
Green lights.
Yes, because he says that in life sometimes you get green lights and you
mm-hmm.
need to know when to go.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yes.
I believe it.
Which ties into our like green light, red light theory in mm-hmm. the Millionaire Real Estate Agent book. So many beautiful things that come together. So you take Mondays off.
Mm-hmm. I have for like 6 years.
Wow. I feel like most agents would be like, how do you do that? I have so much work to do after my busy weekend of offers and everything else. So mm-hmm. how have you implemented having Mondays off?
Okay, so first off, it's about setting the expectation, right? And we've talked about that a couple of times. I really believe that people want to meet expectations, but if you don't have one set, they don't know what to do. And so it seems scary sometimes setting expectations, but it's teaching people how to treat us, and that's what we're doing. Whether we're setting expectations or not, we're teaching people how mm-hmm. to treat us. So I want you to treat me the way I want to be treated. So let me tell you what that looks like. So like 6 years ago, the first thing I did was I changed my voicemail, and it has been the same voicemail on my phone since then. And it says, my office hours are Tuesday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 6 p.m., and Saturday and Sunday by appointment only. I don't even acknowledge Mondays. And when people call me on Mondays, they leave a voicemail that says, hey, sounds like you're out of the office. Call me when you get back. No one was upset, Mm-hmm. And I always say what was funny is that I set that expectation with my clients always. And like 6 months after a closing, I had this gentleman call me, and I answered the phone on a Monday, and I'm like, hey, Paul. And he's like, what are you doing answering your phone? It's your day off. And I said, thank you for protecting my boundaries even when
I
I
always
don't.
said, well, then what are you doing calling
Me, right? I always tell them, call me if you want, but don't expect me to answer.
Right.
Yeah. So there is no good day to take off in real estate. You just have to choose one, create a plan around it, and protect it. And so Mondays work for me. My husband is a stay-at-home dad with our little girl, and so I am lucky to have the luxury of choosing my schedule with my family and when they're available to me. And I know not everybody has that, so I don't take that, for granted at all.
Right. So that's awesome that you do that. And I think there's some, like, your lesson around setting expectations and standards is just so good.
Thank you. And I think the expectations are also set with ourselves, right? And so I have learned that in real estate, on my day off, if I'm 85% off, that's good. I'm willing to compromise the 15%. And I had to learn that too, because at first it was like, don't call me, don't bother me, this is my day. But things happen, right?
Yeah.
And I would be resentful of that. And so it was me adjusting my expectation to say, you know what, if I'm 85% off, I'm taking it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, as a business owner, you're the owner.
Right.
Right. That's why you take on the extra stress and everything else of being an owner, and you operate as a business, and the show and everything is to encourage all agents to operate at a higher level and operate as a business.
Yeah,
because not everyone does.
No, everybody doesn't. A lot of people don't. And I think that isn't fair to you if you aren't treating yourself and your business as a business. You're missing out, because probably your life might look good but not feel good, And why are we working this hard to not enjoy the life that we're building?
I completely agree. I love how it looks versus feel, because there's so many agents that I speak with that it looks awesome, but internally 2-minute conversation, you don't feel good.
Yeah.
And so you're inspiring. You're inspiring
Thank
for
you.
others, and I'm excited for all the cool things that you got going on and your growth. And I know you're thinking about some other areas of business opportunities. Can we talk about that?
Yeah, of course.
So now that it only makes sense because of how your standards, operations, you documented your whole process, and now you're rightfully so entering the world of coaching. So when did that become a thing for you, and what a milestone and a level of achievement to have the confidence in yourself to where you were starting out, you don't know left from right, you don't know anything about selling a home, never sold a home, and now putting yourself in a position to where you can coach others and be confident about it.
Yeah, what a journey, right? To get from there to where we are now. First off, my name, Monica, means advisor. Yeah. And I'm all about alignment.
I love that.
Yeah. And so I think there's always been a part of me, like when I was young, I was like, I'm going to have a talk show called Monica's Mouth. That's what I was going to call it, right? Terrible name. Glad it never happened. But I don't know. There's always been a part of me that loves that aspect of listening to people and trying to help them through things. And I am always on a growth journey and wanting to learn myself. And I love implementing something, see it have an effectiveness, and then can't wait to share that with someone else. And so I started working with my own coach about 5 years ago, and she's amazing. And I hired her to teach me how to be a better leader because I was launching the team. I said, Keller Williams gives me all the business models that I need. I don't need a business coach. What I need is a coach to grow me. And I have loved, it's so uncomfortable. Coaching and therapy is similar, and the growth process is so uncomfortable. And I love it. I love just pulling back the layers. And that moment when you're like, oh, it's a me. It's a me thing. So uncomfortable in the moment, but then so empowering, right? Because I'm like, I can fix that. I can grow through that. So, and I think as realtors, we're absolutely coaches. We're constantly coaching our clients, the other agents, the team, trying to bring this together. And so it was really a natural transition for me and something that I'm just super, super excited about. I am coaching an agent in our office now, and it's just really fun to also challenge myself where I'm like, this is what works for me. But if I'm coaching someone, my job is to figure out what works for them. Otherwise, I'm just consulting. And sometimes consulting is good, but you're going to have buy-in and it's going to work when it is the plan that is unique to the personality. And so I really love the challenge of getting outside of myself and what I know has worked for me to be like, okay, what can we create for you? And then I really love the mindset coaching. Obviously I think it's so powerful, and there's so many things that we can do to like really just feel so much better in our life.
Well, it makes a lot of sense. You have a lot of tools, I can tell, in your tool belt. You referenced a few of them, and in terms of personality assessments and things like that, and your own intuition. And one thing I wanted to comment on earlier is how much do you think your background in communications has helped?
Hugely.
Yeah.
But to take it to the next level and really like learn as much as I can about emotional intelligence and communicating is really
so
vital.
What kind of resources or what have you done to sharpen that sword? Because to your point,
Ryan, I've been on this journey for 17 years.
I'm with you. I haven't. Mine hasn't been quite that long, but I know it's a process. But for like someone's like, I could probably do better in the EQ space.
Yeah. So I think the first place that I would start would be doing a DISC assessment. A DISC assessment, D-I-S-C, is a behavioral assessment. It's not a personality trait. Our behaviors can change. Our personality is like 90% set by the time we're age 5. And we can kind of make some modifications to that, but not really. Like we are who we are, kind of. But as far as our behavioral style, we have a lot of power over that. And it does change as we change in life too. A lot of people, when they do so 3 steps, I think then. The first step is having your own assessment done so you understand what your behavioral style is. That's where most people want to stop, and that's a very narcissistic place to stop because it's like, I'm a D, you accommodate me, right? And so that's not what we want to do. So the second step then is being able to learn how to identify in other people what their assessment likely is. But the power is in step 3, and that's when you really start developing the tools to be able to meet the person where they are. Where if I'm an SD and you're a DI, I need to show up not as my natural self.
Is that your assessment of me?
Yeah. Is it right?
Probably.
Yeah. You're probably an ID is what I'm going to guess. I think you might lead with your I, which is great. There's no wrong. All of them are wonderful.
Well, it came so natural the way you said it, and I was like, oh, that's probably right.
Yeah. But to be able to say, like, this is what this person needs and how do I show up for them? So I always think it's fun to be like, if you just think about how someone wants to receive, like, praise. A D is going to be like, you did a good job. They're satisfied. And I wants it to be like in front of a lot of people, right? So I need to say it in front of the team meeting. Hey, Ryan did a super great job. Let's give him a hand, right? And S is going to want like in private because they don't like the attention. So, hey, I just want to tell you, let me pull you to the side. You did a really great job and I appreciate it. And a C wants all the details. You did a great job on this report and this thing that you did made a huge impact. So if I want to give you praise and you're a C and I'm like, hey guys, team meeting, Ryan did a great, that doesn't achieve the goal that I wanted. Even though I tried, my intention was there, but the impact didn't hit the way that I wanted it to. So the power is in understanding how do I show up for this person the way that they want to be treated, which really is the platinum rule, right? We all like the golden rule, which is treat people how you want to be treated. But the platinum rule is treat people how they want to be treated. And I think that makes all the difference because when we show up and we're connecting that way with people, it's such a connection. You feel seen and heard and your needs are met. And we just don't get that in so many of our relationships these days.
Love the platinum rule.
Yeah.
And it definitely takes the self-awareness first to be able to achieve that. And so you can tell you've done the work to have it because in order to see it in others, you have to see it in yourself first. And what a beautiful thing. And I think even in that you become a person that even if someone does give you praise in the wrong way, being able to recognize the intention and still take it as is and receive it.
And appreciate it.
And appreciate it. Like that, the effort was there.
Yeah.
And that's important.
I think it also teaches you like not to take things so personally. You know, some people, I mean, we're so serious in our life and we take ourselves so seriously. And I'm a very serious person, but I'm not going to take things like it's life.
People know that we are impeccable with our word. We don't take things personally. We don't make assumptions, and we always do our best, right? Four agreements. it's if you haven't read that book,
you got to.
People should just know by now when I start a show to get out your book recommended. Get Amazon ready because I'm dropping books.
I think you should have like a book library.
I think I should.
Oh my gosh, you totally should do that.
You're the probably third or fourth person that tell me that, so I have to put something together.
It will
happen. Dom, make sure it's on the calendar. Yes. Well, I think this is a great place to wrap it up. You have shown up in such a bright, shining way, as you always do, and I
Thank you.
appreciate you and your light, and for sharing some wisdom. I know so many people can connect and want to grow, and to be, and you are the mentor and leader that you aspire to be. I'll tell you that from a third party looking in, and I'm so excited to see what's next for you and what you do for Luxury Committee, what you do in your coaching program, and how you continue to help the community. So thank you for being a part of Tampa Bay Unlocked and all the great things you do.
What fun. This was really fun.
Yes.
I'd like to come back.
I would love to have you back.
All right, let's do it.
Even though we had to do it 2 times.
Next time it'll be a one and
Yes.
done.
Yes. Okay, so if you're still with us, if they're still here, this is something fun I'd like to do.
Okay.
What should they comment below? So for like the real fans, how do we know they're still here? You're going to give them one word that they should comment.
Can they see me in this camera?
Yes.
Am I looking in? Empowerment.
Look at this one. Look at this one.
Empowerment.
Comment
Empowerment.
Comment
Yes.
empowerment below. And like, share, subscribe, and tell a friend. All right? We're dropping wisdom here every week. So appreciate you. Thank you for all you do. Empowerment in the comments. And we'll see you on the next one. Thanks.
Awesome. Thank you. Good job.
That was awesome.
Yeah, that was fun.
It was good.